Hello, I'm Dr. Rosie Kuhn, and this series is called I Want to Be a Better Coach. And my intention is to share some of my expertise and experience in being a life coach, a transformational life coach, a spiritual coach, and hopefully give you some ideas that maybe go beyond what you've learned in your coach training already. So I've had almost 25 years of experience as a life coach. Before that, I was a therapist and also a spiritual guide. So I work all of that together, including recovery work that I've done recovery, and bring all of that to you the best I can. So I'm requesting if you have questions or challenges, things that show up for you as a coach, or maybe you're a beautician, or you work with people at a hair salon, or you work with people as a physiotherapist, like places where you're working with people, you're engaged with them. And how do you talk with them? Perhaps you're challenged with ways of talking with them that could be of value to them and to you to bring a greater level of comfort and ease for you. So there's a link below to a form where you can fill out, ask questions, and I'd happily share with you whatever I can to support you and empower you in being more effective in your communications. All right, so let me get started today. I'm going to move my little iPad closer. So the first question is, why are people resistant to coaching? Why are people resistant to coaching? So quite often, so first of all, you may have heard this in conversations or coach training programs where they say, coaching requires that an individual requests coaching. So in a sense, most people are resistant to getting advice or counsel or problem solving when they haven't asked for it. So quite often we think that now that I'm a coach, I can provide that to people because they want what I have to offer. Well, number one, they most likely don't. And if you think about yourself, and because this is really all about you, if you think about yourself, when are you most receptive to receiving coaching or receiving support and empowerment? When are you most likely to do that? And when are you most likely to go, yeah, no, talk to the hand, not interested? Mostly when people are trying to tell us something or give us something that we haven't asked for or we don't want or don't think we want, we're going to be resistant because we're not asking for it. We're not ready for it, perhaps. So being clear about this relationship that you have with the individual you're with, we're going to call it a client, and what they're wanting in this conversation with you. I say a conversation because all client sessions are conversations. And we'll talk about that more below too, but it's a conversation. And what is your client truly wanting from this conversation versus what are you assuming they want? So quite often people say, oh, I got a problem or I got this thing going on. And we start talking as if they want a solution. And the fact of the matter is sometimes they don't. And that's kind of an interesting thing to say. Why wouldn't people want solutions and advice? Because there's something else going on. So people are resistant to hearing perhaps you say things or tell them things they're not ready or interested in hearing. So you've heard me say this before, and you'll hear me say this quite often, is people will say, oh, here's what I'm up to, or here's what's going on, or here's what it's like in my house, or here's what it's like in my body. And rather than assuming that I know what they want, I ask, what is it you want? Or what do you want by the end of this session? Or what do you want by through this conversation? What is it you're wanting from me? And it helps people get clear about, oh, here's what I really want. And it may be different than what you're assuming. So number one, part of resistance that comes up is because the client may not be feeling heard or seen or gotten by you. If you're making an assumption about them, you're not actually listening. You're making an assumption based on what you're listening for versus what are you listening in them for. So that's a really big one. Number two, and I learned this a long time ago when I was training as a coach, is in the United States specifically, I don't know about other places, but we're taught to be mavericks. We're taught, hey, I can do this myself. I don't need anybody. I'm a maverick. I can do this. I know how to do it. It's my way or the highway. So quite often that perspective engages a client in that conversation versus, hey, I need support and I'm asking you to support me. So that perspective of, hey, I'm a maverick, I'm an independent person, I don't need anybody. That's a really good thing to take into consideration, especially when we're seeing people with challenges or issues. I'm saying challenges or issues. It could be physical issues, medical issues, financial issues, personal or love relationship issues, whatever it is, spiritual issues. They're being challenged, and we can invite coaching, if you will, because we're saying people who want coaching need to, in a sense, make the request for coaching. But we can say, "Hey, I'm a coach, and I would love to support you in moving through this." And in a way that you can say that is a way that you are hearing, like, "Hey, I get that you got some stuff going on, and I'm good at handling this stuff. I'm good at listening. So if you're interested, I'd be happy to support you in this situation." And it's you're asking in a sense of invitation. You're the invitation, but you're not making any, hey, I can help you with this and you're gonna really love it and I'm gonna get you through this. Now you might think that inside, but how do you engage in a way that makes a person feel seen, heard, and gotten? And again, it's really important. And like even in this conversation with you, my intention is to engage with you, to listen for what is it that might be showing up for you in your practices, and what might you need support in throughout, either personally or professionally. It's all personal, it's all professional. And how can I be supportive? So I'm listening for all of that, even in this conversation that for me is just I'm talking to the camera, but I'm talking to you. And so if I'm really honoring and respecting who you are, I'm paying attention to that versus just talking about stuff that I don't think, obviously, if you're not interested, you won't stick around. That's the bottom line. So that's a really important element too, is like, who am I and how am I hearing and listening and getting who you are, where you're at in this circumstance? And another element of this is quite often as coaches, we're wanting to get clients moving. We want to keep them in action. We want to keep them motivated and the momentum going. And sometimes there is no momentum. Sometimes they're like stopped, stuck, whatever, that entrenched place, and they're not moving. And this is not a bad thing. We sometimes go, oh my God, they're not moving, they're resistant, they're not coachable. We make all this stuff up. But the fact of the matter is the individual is in a situation, in a space, in a time, in their moment where they need to work things out. And they need a listening partner. They need someone to listen with them. But what's going on that keeps them tethered or constrained or limited or stuck or lost or whatever that is? They need someone to be with them where they're at without saying, okay, now we got to move you forward, or here's what you're going to do to make you go forward. And it's like sometimes where we are is where we need to be. And as a coach, quite often we're not taught to be here now with our clients. We're taught, oh, future, get them there, got to keep them in action. And if they're not in action, all that stuff. Now, if you have a different perspective, let me know and leave a comment below, because I'd love to hear what you have to say. But my interpretation is that quite often, and this is something I have to work against myself in terms of that that desire to push and move them towards their desired results. Maybe their desired results they'll get there by being right here, right now. And my job is to listen, to say, so what's happening with you right now? What's it like being you here in this resistance? And all kinds of great things can come up by asking those questions, being right here, right now. And we'll talk about that again in the next question as well. So sometimes the most effective action can be in the state of no action. And this was a big practice for me to say, okay, this is where my client really needs, and they need to do a lot of listening. And listening is action, and they need to do a lot of sensing in terms of and experiencing what's true for them. There's a lot of energy and action going into listening and being and seeing what's going on, experiencing what's happening inside. There's a lot going on. So when we can be with our client going, what's happening right now? What's right here? We're not pushing. we're so used to being pushed or pushing that even in terms of our own sense of self, it's like, I should be further along. You'll hear this with clients a lot. I hear this with clients and the trainees that I work with is like, I should be able to do this better. It's like, no, you're working through things, which brings me up to my next point, which is there's an incremental process. And sometimes that incremental process can be just the tiniest little movement. But because we judge, action, futurizing, results is the most important thing, we lose sight of how to actually get there. And even our own experience, that's why being coached is so important, because you can't know the experience of what you're taking your client through if you yourself haven't gone through it. And if you expect them to move faster, it's like, look at your own self and how you experience when people are trying to push you faster than you can go. It doesn't work. It does not work. And you know that. So just being present to the progress, in a sense, takes place incrementally. And sometimes it takes place in a very tiny little space where this client or person is, this individual, and for us to sit and be present to them in that space and say, how's it going in there? It could be really, really a great opportunity for them to explore, gosh, this is what it's like in me. And I didn't even know I felt this. I didn't even know I thought that. I didn't even know this was part of my being. So you being able to do that with them, just sitting without any expectations of momentum and motivation, you're going to have an experience, and they're going to have an experience of acceptance, being seen and heard. That's going to be much more supportive and create a space that will provide less resistance, but the resistance still comes up. I had a client the other day, and I was talking about something with the client based on what they were wanting. And I said something, and he said, I'm feeling defensive right now. And I went, all right. Because in the defensiveness, there's stuff like, what is that? I'm just saying stuff. He's having an experience of defensiveness. It's like, great. What's happening right now? What triggered the defensiveness? Now I could go, oh, I better not say that because he's gotten defensive. Or, oh, I said the wrong thing, and so I better apologize. It's like, no, he heard something that triggered a defensiveness or resistant to what I was saying. And we had a conversation about that. Like, wow, what showed up? And those kinds of opportunities where you're not getting defensive and you're not going, oh my God, I did something wrong. You're going, wow, that's interesting. Tell me more. That gives them an opportunity that they feel safe, because you're listening for, wow, what is happening inside you? You're curious and fascinated and you care. So that's really, really important. You are cultivating trust in yourself in these places. Like when a client's resistant, you go, oh, I better do something different, or how do I fix this? You're learning how to be, oh, resistance is just part of a transformational process. Resistance is part of our growing. Resistance is where we stop and look at what's happening in our life, or how it feels, or what's safe. How can I trust myself? I don't know how to do me. Quite often, like 100% of the time, my clients will say, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. I was talking to a client about a particular practice, and she said, I don't know how to do that. And I go, well, wait, you know how to meditate? Yes. You know how to look at and see thoughts that are positive and negative? Yes. You know how to smile and feel when things are going well? Yes. Okay, so which part of this do you not know? Because we go, oh, I don't know how to do this. It's like, no, she actually knows how to do all that, but it's just different than how she's used to. But we put up the, oh, I don't know how to do this. That's a resistance. And like, oh, that's interesting. I have to do that myself. And I'm sure you do that as well. There's places where you resist. You might be listening to what I'm saying and go, oh, no, that's too scary, or that's too hard. It's like, yep, those are the places we want to listen to within ourselves as coaches and support people. And we want to listen to those places with our clients and be very respectful and honoring and go, yes, that makes perfect sense that resistance would come up. Allow them that place of, wow, that makes perfect sense that it's resistance coming up, because it's true. So that's when we can be less resistant to resistance in our client. We go, oh, embrace it. Embrace the resistance in your clients. See what shows up. they'll appreciate it because they'll feel safe with you, that you're not going to say, oh, we got to do something to get rid of that resistance. Coaching and therapy and all those places, oh, we got to get rid of that. It's like, no, this is part of being human. And for us to explore and appreciate and value and honor the resistance. Like, what is that about for a client? Rather than going, oh, it's wrong and bad. Tell that to yourself when somebody's telling you to move forward faster. It's like, nope, not doing that. You ask me to fly out, jump out of a plane. Nope, not doing it. What's the resistance? Don't want to do it. Don't even want to have the conversation. So don't even try, right? But there's those places where we go, wait, let's talk about this. And that's when our clients, if I were saying, I want to jump out of a plane and I have resistance, now you can coach me. But I don't want to jump out of a plane. But you get the point. We can be done with that one. All right. The second question of the day, a number of my trainees who are working with me, who are being supervised, basically, they'll go, I was trained to be transactional, which is like, here's what we're going to do to get the results we want. That's transactional. What do you want? Here's how you get it. And here's the results. Like, that's transactional. And how is that different than what I do, basically? So I was also taught, in a sense, transactional. It's like the goal or the result is what's the most important thing. And that's true for me as well. That's important. Try to get the client to support and empower my client, to empower them to do and get and be who they want to be. That's my job. But how I go about it is not transactional. In a sense, when people are in a transactional situation, you know this for yourself, when people are doing the doing, but they're not engaged with you and not connected with you, not really listening and hearing and getting you, you're kind of distance. You're not connected or engaged with them. And you go, it slows things down, actually, as opposed to, well, if I do this right, if I do transactional right, I'll get there faster. I had a client today said, I have a transactional relationship with God. Is here's what I want, God, and here's what I'm willing to do, and here's what I want you to do, and that's it. It's like, it's not a real relationship. There's no intimacy or vulnerability. There's no true engagement from our selves. It's just pragmatic. Do this in terms of logical, rational conversation. Doesn't work. It doesn't work. And maybe it does. Maybe it does for some people. But the way that I am as a human being, a transactional situation will rarely work. And even if I go to a medical doctor and they do a transactional thing, let's check this, and that's fine. But I also need that sense of being heard and seen and gotten as a human being. So it's a both and. We need some of that transactional. My transaction with people is I ask 4 questions. You've heard me say this. Question number 1 is, what do you want? And my listening is for what they want, but I'm also listening for all the things that get in the way. Question 2, what gets in the way? Number 3, what needs to shift so that those things get out of the way and you can have what you want? It's like speed bumps. Let's get the speed bumps out, or the obstacles, and you're on your way. And the 4th is, what will you practice? Now that's transactional. That's the transactional element. However, if you watch and hear me coach, and I'm kind of doing it with you, it's conversational. I want to be engaged with you in a way that we're having a personal experience. And there's some vulnerability and there's some intimacy that shows up. Every time I engage with an individual, and especially people who are newer to me, or it just can be anyone, because every conversation is brand new, I have to show up as me. And if my defenses get in the way, or my gets in the way, I'm not going to show up. And my clients are not going to be able to show up either. So my willingness to be in a conversation with them and truly listen and be curious is really important. And watch all the ways that I get in the way, my resistance, if you will, from question number 1, but also this transactional, like I have to stay in this professional conversation. If it's working for you, awesome. If it's not working for you, then you go, that's not working for me. And what most of us do is we go, oh, I got to do more. Or I got to do it better. I got to do it harder. I got to do it faster. I got to do it different. It's like, maybe that's not a style that's working for you, or maybe it's not working. Just maybe it's not working. But you can figure that out by going, well, this works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. And you get to, as you grow yourself as a coach, you get to know the difference. And that's an important thing. When is it important for me to say, okay, Mary Ann, just making up the name, Mary Ann, here's where you're at. Here's where you want to get. And what do you see in the way? And that's kind of a transactional thing, because I'm asking her to look at this elements of this. But I do it in a way, it might be transactional, but I'm holding the space of who she is as she's growing and stretching and being more brave about these conversations. So that's really important too. There's a third thing here. Can't remember. But this place, oh, I know what I was going to say. When I was studying and training to be a therapist, a marriage and family therapist, there was my supervisor said, he said, do you know what pseudo intimacy means? And I went, no, I don't know what that means. And he said, the intimacy in a relationship with a client is one-sided. In a sense, we're asking our clients to show up vulnerable, or being willing to be vulnerable. We're asking them to show up and stretch their capacity to be outside their comfort zone, which is makes them feel vulnerable. So our ability to see that this is a pseudo intimacy, I'll be intimate as much as I can, but my professional standing means I'm not sharing myself and my problems and my grief and my woes and my problems with my client. It's one way in that situation in our professional life. And at the same time, I come from a recovery background where, as a sponsor, I'm also sharing, here's where I've been in similar situations. Here's where I experienced this situation. Here's where I learned such and such, or practice such and such. So I share what I share, but not from a place that my client is like a friend. This is a whole nother conversation we'll have another time about clients becoming friends. This is a one-way relationship in terms of me being the professional, but also a partner, thinking partner, and a companion on this life path with people. So transactional keeps me invulnerable, but it keeps me from really engaging, from my perspective, really engaging with my client in such a way that they feel seen, heard, and gotten, and they can trust and feel safe with me that I'm holding that space. So just consider the possibilities of how transactional you might be. And if that's working for you, awesome. And if there might be a place where you want to expand into a more conversational possibility, just saying, and see what shows up as an experiment, as a practice. All right, so I'll move on. We might come back to that again another time. Okay, third question. As a new coach, how can I possibly compete? How can I As a new coach, how can I possibly compete with all the other coaches? I feel doomed and defeated before I've even started. Do I need to compromise myself to get clients? It's a great question. And so many training programs train you, or want to train you, to think in terms of a round hole, being a round peg going in a round hole, and making yourself that round hole, round peg, you know what I'm saying. If I have to change myself, then what am I here to do with my client? In a sense, my work with my clients, I believe, is to empower them to be the fullest expression of their essential nature. Like, who are they in their fullness? And if I think I have to change myself to be seen, heard, and gotten, then I'm actually in a conflicting situation from what I'm wanting for my clients. I have to be willing to be me in my fullest expression. And the conversation about competition is in that fear-based paradigm, consensus view of reality, that we're competing. And as a transformational coach, for me, and my company's name is the Paradigm Shifts, in this perspective of having to shift the paradigm, I have to see that there is no competition. My work is my work. My sense of what I'm bringing to the world is unique and different than everybody else's. People who are my clients aren't anybody else's clients. And my clients are waiting for me, and your clients are waiting for you. And they're waiting for you to show up in a certain way. They're waiting for you perhaps to learn something or grow something. They're waiting for you. And so you can become more you in your fullest expression. And then they start to come. Now, they start to come doesn't mean, the flocks and the herds and, hordes of people. It just means the people who are yours will come. This takes faith. And again, this is what we're asking of our clients, to say, we want them to have that leap of faith, to trust, to make the changes and shifts that are required for them to have what they want. We need to practice the same degree of faith in saying, okay, I can believe in competition, which means now I'm afraid, and now I most likely will go into lack. And how do I be less lack? We do this all the time, especially coaches. So many people have deserving issues, unworthy issues, lack issues. And we're not, what's the word? We're not immune to it just because we're coaches or therapists. We have it. We have it. And so the more that we can look at that and honor that, we can heal that place of, how do I be me? And how am I willing to be me, so that I'm not afraid? I don't need to compete. There's a book I love by Tracy Goss called The Last Word on Power. And though she's talking about executive reinvention, her principles and values and everything she's talking about speaks to all of us. And one of the things she talks about is dying before the battle. So this is that place where competition, it's like, okay, I don't want to play any competition. So in a sense, that part of me, that ego part of me that is so driven by competition and fear and anxious, I'm going to say, I got to let you go and practice seeing and hearing and getting me in a way that I don't allow if I'm in fear and competition. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm constantly triggered by people who do what I do, and they're making the big bucks, or they have, 50 million followers or whatever it is. And I go, whoa, I'm doing something wrong. And I feel that moment of competition, and, I must be less than and all that. And I have to go stop. My work and my clients and my way of being in the world is different. And it doesn't mean, being a coach doesn't mean, as we talked about last week, doesn't mean I'm going to make six figures. It doesn't mean I'll be famous like Tony Robbins or anyone else. It doesn't mean any of that. It means I'm choosing to be a coach and do the work I do the way I do it. So for you to be able to go, okay, I'm willing to let go of my fear of competition and fear of not being enough and fear of not getting clients, and really stepping into my full commitment to be a coach, do the work, and be present. And that level of commitment will bring you what it brings you. It'll bring you who it brings you. Where I'm at now, 25 years after starting coaching and 40 some years after starting as a therapist, I'm at a different place of realizing, wow, this is who I am. This is what I do. And nobody's going to be able to compete with me. And I still can't compete with other people. There's no competition. There's no competition. So that's what I want for you, is to go, okay, if there's no competition, who am I in my expression? Who am I as I sit with clients? Who am I as I design my website? Who am I? What's the spark of joy, the what's infinitely pleasing? What's that comes through you that has nothing to do with competition? And when you can practice that just as a possible awareness, then something else is going to shift for you. And that's also going to make you much more valuable as a coach because you're not going to be bringing that stuff into your session with your clients. We all do it. We all do it. We all do it. And if you can stop doing it or lower the level to which you're doing it, you're going to be much more present to your client and much more committed to their fulfillment, the fulfillment of their human spirit. So notice those conversations that you have about competing and just say, how am I dealing with this? And if you want support for coaching or supervision, there are people out there that do that. I do it. You're welcome to call me for support, supervision, group coaching. We do this coaching group with coaches. So we're listening for what's in the way of their coaching. And you're welcome to join us. It's a really awesome, awesome possibility. So there's lots of ways that you can get support so that you can move through this if you want to. All right, that's it for today. That's a lot. And thank you for listening. If you're like this, if there was anything valuable, please like it. And please, if you're interested in getting more, I'll be doing this every week for a while, maybe for a long time. Please subscribe. And please feel free to share this with people that you think they might get some value out of this. In fact, you might know some clients or other coaches or, other people that are serving individuals, and this could be more valuable. All right. Thanks again. Bye-bye.